A recent report about the New York Jets has revealed a lot of details on Aaron Rodgers' future, and the Jets are going to be forced into an impossible decision when it comes to who their next quarterback is going to be, whether it's Rodgers sticking around, Jordan Travis taking over, or the Jets going for an external option through the draft, free agency, or trades, and we're going to break it all down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jets Digest. It's Chris and Matt here, and if you guys like the content, make sure to subscribe. It helps us out a ton. 19% of viewers are subscribed. However, let's jump right into the video because Zach Rosenblatt revealed a lot about the New York Jets' future, if Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback for the next season, or if they're going to have to look in another direction. Now, taking a look at what Rosenblatt said, he really broke down the whole Rodgers situation. And essentially with Aaron Rodgers, he mentioned that I just need some time to think about my future in the game and my future here, if they want me to be a part of the next phase or not, or if they're ready to move on. Either way, I'm thankful for my 2 years here. I honestly don't know if I'm returning to the Jets. I'm looking forward to those conversations. Either way, I won't be upset or offended. Whatever they decide to do, if they want to move on, if I still want to play, and if not, I will let them know at some point if that's the case. Now, Aaron Rodgers is in a weird situation right now. He's never in his career been in a position where his future has really been this unclear. He doesn't know if he's going to stick around and play in the NFL any longer. And even if he does, there's a very likely possibility that that is not with the New York Jets. The Jets might be looking to go full rebuild and not trying to run the Aaron Rodgers experiment for one more year. And if that's the case, that they want to move on from Rodgers, they're going to have to find someone else to be the starting quarterback for the team. Now, there's a ton of options, and we will get into all of them, but just taking a look at some of Rosenblatt's other comments, something he mentioned that the Jets can take their time if they really want to, but a decision seemingly won't come until at least Woody Johnson picks a general manager and or head coach. Johnson and the Jets brass have been saying that the new GM and head coach will get to make the decision on Rodgers, though it's difficult to believe that the Jets owner was okay with the shots Rodgers has been taking at him, both in press conferences and various media appearances. Ultimately, it would be surprising if Aaron Rodgers remains a Jet. Matt, I don't really think Aaron Rodgers is going to stick around on the New York Jets, but at this rate, I would like him to. I don't really see the Jets having an avenue to getting a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers at this moment in time. It just feels like it's unlikely to see someone show up and put up a better year than Aaron Rodgers put up with the New York Jets. I mean, 3,897 passing yards, third in Jets history in a single season, eighth in the NFL, 28 touchdowns, third in New York Jets quarterback history, tied for seventh in the NFL, 192 passing first downs, eighth in the NFL, 51 20-plus passing plays, tied for eighth in the NFL, and only 11 interceptions, which is fourth lowest for quarterbacks that have at least 28 touchdowns. As Harrison Glazer mentioned, he's one of the best quarterbacks in Jets history and arguably still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has still got it to some degree. He's still a solid player, and if the New York Jets want to make the playoffs next year, they're not going to find someone better suited to help do it than Aaron Rodgers.
First of all, that still a top 10 quarterback in the league, that's nonsense. Aaron Rodgers he's not completely washed. He's washed compared to what he used to be, which was the best, any given year, the best quarterback in football. He's still probably a top 20 quarterback, which is better than the Jets would get if they moved on from him. Top 10 is ridiculous, though. But this decision, we are seeing that it's going to be made by the GM. But you got to remember, Woody Johnson is going to be interviewing these general managers before they get the job. So looking at Woody Johnson's track record, you have to think he's going to choose a GM who Woody knows that the GM's decision will be to move on from Rodgers. Because Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers have a reportedly irreparable relationship. So Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers are not going to get along. Woody Johnson is most likely going to be hiring a general manager that is going to choose to move on from Aaron Rodgers. And then Woody Johnson will be able to say, it wasn't my call, it was the GM's call. When in all likelihood, it actually is the owner's call, Woody Johnson's call. He's not a fan of Aaron Rodgers anymore. Wanted to bench him after week 4. That was pretty embarrassing. But here we are. So also with the future of these Green Bay guys, Davante Adams, we have to keep in mind, he will do whatever Aaron Rodgers does. He's not, of course, tied to Aaron Rodgers by any means. But everything that we're hearing, he is going to take a pay cut to stay with the Jets if Aaron Rodgers takes a pay cut to stay with the Jets. Something that Aaron Rodgers has announced that he is open to doing. He was willing to take a pay cut with the New York Jets to stay with the team. Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers stays, Davante stays, Aaron Rodgers goes, Davante goes. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I want to stay with the Jets because it's a pride thing at this point. He is one of the best players, quarterbacks in NFL history, top 10 of all time without a doubt. He needs to prove to everyone in the league. He wants to prove to Jets fans that he can do it. He wants to prove to his haters looking at the NFL that he can do it. He wants to prove it to himself that he's still that guy who can take any NFL team to the playoffs, potentially to a Super Bowl. There's no way the competitor that we've seen Aaron Rodgers to be over the course of his career is going to go out sad like this. There's no way he's going to go out in a year where his team earned a top 10 draft pick. Maybe he's interested in getting some pretty good stats. Those stats, of course, looking really solid in the NFL this year, and in Jets history looked even better. But Aaron Rodgers, the only stat he cares about right now is wins. Or the only stat he should care about is wins. And knowing the competitor there that he has been in the past, I have to imagine the only thing he cares about is wins as well. The Jets didn't even come close to enough wins. So Aaron Rodgers, if you interview him, he hasn't had a lot of good things to say about his game this year, and he shouldn't, because no matter what the stats say, if you're not winning, unless you're Joe Burrow leading the league in almost every single thing there is to lead and you still don't make the playoffs, that's a different story. Aaron Rodgers, he's been good this year, but you're talking about should he come back or not? There are massive contract implications whether he stays or goes. If they keep him on the roster for next year, they have to pay him a $35 million bonus, which would be just insane. That's a ton of money. And for me, that is the breaking point where before we knew about this, I was someone who was saying we're not going to find a better quarterback. We're going to have to pay a lot of money anyway. So why would we pay him to not be on our roster? So I want to keep Aaron Rodgers and just maybe he finds some magic and can bring back next season. With that $35 million on top of the other money that we have to pay him, I don't think that financially that makes enough sense. And I honestly hate to say it, but I do think you said it. You just to make sure, you said you think that he's not going to be back next year.
I would guess he's not on the Jets, though I want him on the Jets.
Yes. So unfortunately I'm with you because I do want him on the Jets. I feel like a lot of Jets fans want to see if he can do it and just stick it out and see if he can recover his former self. But the money, it just does not make financial sense for him to stay on the team. You have to imagine a new GM is going to want to come in and give themselves the most flexibility possible, whether it comes to draft capital or cap space. And cutting Aaron Rodgers and cutting Davante Adams is the easiest way to just give yourself as much flexibility as possible so they can start creating their own team and their image. So talking about what kind of quarterbacks they're going to go after, like you said, they're not going to be better than Aaron Rodgers. And that just sucks so much because 2 years ago, we were so excited when he was traded from the Green Bay Packers to the New York Jets, thought that he was going to make a difference. We felt like the roster was a quarterback away. It could have been so different, Chris. I know I'm not going to try to step on the next part of the video, so let's take us through some of these quarterback options.
All right, so just looking at some of the options, obviously there's a ton. And real quick, right before we mention that, well, we really are going to go into it right now, but right before we mention external options, which feels a bit more likely as their starter, inside the Jets, you got Tyrod Taylor, who is wildly popular in the Jets locker room, beloved by wide receiver Garrett Wilson, which is obviously huge. Taylor would be the odds favorite to start in Week 1 next season. He signed for 2025 at a reasonable rate for $6.8 million cap hit, and he'd be perfectly adequate as a bridge quarterback. The other quarterback on the roster is Jordan Travis, which a bunch of Jets fans like, but the 5th-round pick didn't practice the entire season, coming off a gruesome leg injury suffered in his final college game. It's unclear if or when he'll be able to return to the field, let alone making an impact. Now, look, there's not much we have to say on Tyrod Taylor. If you've been an NFL fan for the last 10 years, you know what Tyrod Taylor brings to the game, especially at this point in his career. Is he a good quarterback? No. Is he the worst quarterback in the world? No. Is it huge that Garrett Wilson likes him? Absolutely. And that makes me happier about Tyrod Taylor. Also, he just seems like a cool dude, so I don't mind it. The Jets are obviously going to lose a ton of games with Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback. But if you waive Aaron Rodgers, you're accepting the fact that you're not making the playoffs next year. That's where the Jets are at. We all know that. So, I mean, I guess it's fine because you're probably not going to pull off some big revival out of some free agent, is my guess.
Yeah, we've seen it the last couple of years. We had career revivals out of Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield. There is not a free agent quarterback on the market where that's likely to happen. Me and you would agree that Sam Darnold was someone with untapped potential, and really, once he got in a situation where he actually had weapons and was allowed to start, he was going to be able to go off like that and was going to be able to show why he was drafted third overall. So we're not surprised by the fact that he went crazy with the Minnesota Vikings, seeing how they have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, and a great head coach in terms of offense. Kevin O'Connell, really smart offensive guy. Between these two in-the-house options, my pick would be go with a hopefully not fully healthy but playable Jordan Travis, because there's that outside chance that he is a starting quarterback long term, and you can actually find something in him. Are the chances like 2%? Yes, they're not better than that. He is extremely, extremely likely to just land us in the top of the draft next year. But with Tyrod Taylor, let's say he is good and does have a little bit of a career revival. He's too old for him to be a long-term option. If Tyrod Taylor hits that 2% outcome, or not Tyrod Taylor, if Jordan Travis hits that 2% outcome, it's possible that the Jets have their guy long-term. We saw the same thing with the Las Vegas Raiders this year. It was either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, and I kept saying they got to play O'Connell because that's the guy who there is a potential win. Both those guys look like a loss, but there's that small option that Aiden O'Connell could be the guy long-term. He wasn't, but that's just where we are. When it comes to Jordan Travis, you can root for him to be the starting quarterback next season, but the problem, the thing that you can't expect, is for him to actually be good. I understand he led Florida State to a really good, or not a really good record. They were undefeated, so as good as you can possibly get. He played tremendously well in college, but that's college. It's not the NFL. There are plenty of quarterbacks coming out of college, or played really well in college, don't play really well in the NFL. It's a much different game with the speed and the size of players and the complexity of offensive play calling, and the way you got to go through your reads is a lot different in the NFL from college. There is a reason why he was not a round 1 pick, a round 2 pick. Jordan Travis, great college quarterback. Like I said, I would be okay starting him, but very low chance that he's going to work out.
Yeah, I don't really think that we're going to see Jordan Travis come off some gruesome leg injuries, a 5th-round pick, and really work it out. However, there also is the other option of an external guy. Like in the draft, the Jets' best hope is landing a quarterback in the first round. That would either be a trade-up scenario or hoping that Drew Aller decides to go into the NFL draft. Outside of that, you have Jalen Milroe, who's considered a day 2 project in free agency. There's some intriguing options. Justin Fields is only 25. He showed some flashes of improvement with Pittsburgh before Russell Wilson took over. Veterans, there's a lot of veterans out there. I mean, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, Daniel Jones, and Cooper Rush, all available in free agency. Kirk Cousins is available as a trade piece. The Jets showed interest in him in the past, even though he just had his worst season in the NFL. The most intriguing potential addition is J.J. McCarthy through a trade. The Vikings picked him, but then he tore his ACL, and Sam Darnold did break out, so it becomes this thing where one of them are an option. Obviously, McCarthy is the most enticing option, but it just feels like none of these guys, like, the only hope of an actual, like, long-term quarterback there is McCarthy.
So there's that. I mean, you could say you want Justin Fields. You're gonna hope that he's a long-term option. He is still a young quarterback, but he hasn't shown. He showed a tiny bit of improvement in like the last 6 games in Chicago, and then he showed improvement on the Steelers. But I think that improvement was just really, really high-level coaching and a really good offensive system. That's what I think that was, because we watched. I mean, we know how well coached everyone is in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, he doesn't have losing seasons. People make fun of him because his seasons are like just barely better than winning seasons, or they're like just barely over 500. And apparently that's something to make fun of him for. But he's a great coach. That roster is not a highly competitive roster. It's not. Awful offensive line, mid quarterbacking, if you could even call that mid. And then I'm not even gonna go through it because they're not the Jets, but from that list, the most likely option for the New York Jets, a player who is gettable with real utilization, like a player the Jets would have a real use for, would be Jacoby Brissett as a bridge quarterback. If they signed him for like 2 years and then want to see him start this year in what would be essentially a tank season, and then help mentor a top pick in 2026 in the 2026 draft, mentor one of those top quarterbacks, and then try to get the Jets rebuilt properly. They don't need a full rebuild, as we've seen, but they need that quarterback, which unfortunately is the most difficult thing to find in the NFL. The news is the Minnesota Vikings are not open to trading J.J. McCarthy, so I would say the chances of the Jets acquiring him are very low. But if they were to trade for him, it would be the 7th overall pick and potentially even more than that, because there is expected to be a lot of interest in J.J. McCarthy this offseason should he be made available. However, like I said before, the news is he will not be available in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Tyrod than Brissett just because he's already on the team and he's going to rapport with Wilson. However, we can always talk about this in the future when it becomes more obvious who the Jets starting quarterback is going to be. But guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, like, turn on post notifications. Have a great day, and go Jets.